Good afternoon, dear students. You are watching Learning SS with Rajesh YouTube channel. Dear student, I hope you are well at home and preparing for your SST subject as well. And first of all, Vande Matram and Jai Hind, because we are going to start lesson number 2, Nationalism in India. In the previous video, you learnt about the rise of nationalism in India, what were the main reason, and about First World War. And you also learnt about roll tact and satyagraha in the previous video. Today we will learn about the after events of Jallianwala Bagh massacre. So after Jallianwala Bagh massacre, Gandhiji thought that it is needed to increase nationalism in India through a large movement. It means a large movement should be started instead of satyagraha. So that's why Gandhiji started Khilapat movement firstly. Now firstly we will learn that what is the meaning of Khilapat here. So Gandhiji wanted to bring the Hindus and Muslims close together. So he raised the issue of Khilapat. So that's why Gandhiji started Khilapat movement, because Gandhiji wanted that Hindus and Muslims should be close to each other for unity of India. Nextly, you will learn about the issue of Khilapat, as we are going to learn about Khilapat movement. The issue of Khilapat was in First World War, Ottoman Turkey was defeated by Britain. You learnt in 9th class about First World War, and in First World War you learned that these Ottoman Turkey and Germany etc. were defeated by Britain and Russia. So that's why the First World War, Ottoman Turkey was defeated by Britain and other powers. So there were rumors that harsh treaty imposed on the Ottoman Empire, which was known as Khalifa. So the major problem of Khilafat was in the First World War, Turkey was defeated by Britain, and there were rumors that harsh treaty was imposed on Ottoman Emperor Khalifa. So to protest that Britain, the country or the Britisher, to stop that such type of treaty, so that's why Gandhiji called or advised all the Muslims to collect at one stage. And nextly, to defend Khalifa, a Khilafat committee was formed in Bombay in March 1919 to protest the British. I hope you learned the meaning of Khilafat here. And after Khilafat, you learned that Gandhiji and some Muslim leader formed a committee named as Khilafat Committee in Bombay in March 1919 to protest the Britisher. So a major question, objective type question will be there in your exam. When and where was Khilafat Committee formed? You will answer that in Bombay in March 1990. After that, Gandhiji consulted Muhammad Ali and Shaukat Ali to unite the Muslims. And finally, in Calcutta, session of Congress in September 1920. It will be also objective type question and a map question will be there. Which is the place? So find out the place. It will be marked in your CBSE exam that which is the first one or second one. There will be a Roman numbers, I think, and after that you will have to choose that. For example, 1 point is written on the spot of Calcutta, and there will be a point written that name the place where the Congress session was held in September 1920, and you will answer that this place is Calcutta. I hope you learned the map 1 skill also. What type of map skill will be there in exam? And in Congress session or Calcutta session of Congress September 1920, Gandhiji convinced other leaders to start a non-cooperation movement to support Khilapat. So you also learned the major point that Gandhiji started non-cooperation movement to support Khilapat also and for Swaraj also to get independence. I hope you learned the first major point of today. What was the issue of Khilapat and what were the main step in Khilapat movement? In Khilapat movement. Next, why non-cooperation? Why non-cooperation? Now, Gandhiji started non-cooperation. You learned in that in Khilapat movement he will support by non-cooperation. Why non-cooperation? Gandhiji wrote a book in 1909 named as Hind Swaraj. It will be also objective type question in exam. Name the book written by Gandhiji in 1909, or whether there will be question who is the writer of Hind Swaraj book and when was Hind Swaraj book written by Gandhiji. I hope you learned the first point. Now, in that book, Hind Swaraj, Gandhiji declared that British rule in India was established with the cooperation of Indians, and he was 100% true that the establishment of British rule in India was truly cooperated by Indians. And so Indians should refuse to cooperate. If you will not cooperate, the Britisher or the British people, they will go one day from India. So that's why Gandhiji started non-cooperation movement. So action by Indian leaders for non-cooperation. Now you learned that Gandhiji started a movement named as non-cooperation movement. Surrender of titles. The first action by the leaders, they surrendered their titles. For example, Gandhiji was given a title named as Kesar Hind by the British because he helped the Britisher in First World War. So that's why the all people who got title from the British government surrender their titles. And next, boycott of services like armies, police, courts, and as well as goods. Goods were also boycotted by the Indian people. Some leaders were reluctant to boycott the council elections. Council elections were also protested or boycotted by the Indian, but some leaders were reluctant to boycott the council elections. Who were such type of leaders? Finally, you will learn about in the next stanza in Madras presidency, Justice Party denied such type of elections. Denied, or means denied to revolt against these elections. Finally, at Congress session at Nagpur in December 1920, non-cooperation program was adopted by Congress party. It will be also map skill point, which is the point or which is the given place where the non-cooperation program was adopted by Congress, and you will write the answer that it's Nagpur. And the previous you learned that in September 1920 it was Calcutta, where there was discussion for making or for starting non-cooperation movement, and finally adoption of that program was in the place of Nagpur, Maharashtra. I hope you learned the second point also. And the nextly, involvement of people in non-cooperation movement in the towns. In the towns, how did people help or promote non-cooperation movement? Middle class participated in that movement in towns. Student left school, teacher resigned, and lawyers also resigned from their courts, and council elections boycotted except Madras. You learned in the previous point now. Why? Justice Party in Madras was in favor of elections. Justice Party, the leader of Justice Party thought that by election representation they can talk with the Britisher, with British people or British officials to promote their or to solve their problem. It was the thinking of Justice Party. I hope you learned the next point also. How did non-cooperation movement spread in the towns? It will be a question in exam. And next point of today is the effect of non-cooperation movement or non-cooperation on economic front was dramatic. I hope you learned the major point or stanza point there. The effect of non-cooperation on economic front. So economic front means that on industries or industrial things. So firstly, foreign goods were boycotted. Now you will learn that why was non-cooperation effect on economic front was dramatic. Why was dramatic? Like a drama. Firstly, Indian people boycotted foreign goods. Foreign goods were boycotted. Liquor shops picketed. So it is the major new word for you, I think. Picketed. Picketed here means to stop the main way of going such type of offices or such type of shops. Liquor shops were picketed. It means the way was disturbed by the people or blocked by the people of going liquor shops. Now, the import of foreign clothes dropped due to the boycott of foreign things. The import of foreign cloth dropped. Gandhiji said Indian people to wear khadi nowadays. Khadi, to wear khadi. But why was this non-cooperation effect on economic front dramatic? You are going to learn from now fourth point. But khadi cloth was expensive. That's why Indian people could not wear that khadi. Alternative institutions were not there. For example, you learnt in the previous point that teachers and students, teacher resigned from their places, from their post, and student also boycotted school, and lawyers also boycotted courts. But no alternative institutions were there. And it should be a time consuming for setting up of those institutions. So that's why students and teachers began tickling back to schools and lawyers tickling back to the courts. I hope you learned the major point now. Why was non-cooperation movement effect on economic front was dramatic. Nextly, rebellion in the countryside. You learnt about the rebellion in towns now, and in towns you also learned that it was dramatic. And how did a non-cooperation movement progress in countryside? It means in the villages. Firstly, we will learn about the example of Awadh. How did it spread in Awadh? The leader of peasants was Baba Ramchandra. In the, as you know that nowadays also in India people are peasants. At that time also in Awadh, peasants revolted against British, and their leader was Baba Ramchandra. You will write the first point. The peasants of Awadh revolted against British, and the leader was Baba Ramchandra. Their movement was against jamidars and landlords. You know that jamidar means landlords, and talukdars and the Britishers. You know that the problem was high rent taken by jamidars when they get land from jamidar to grow crops on rent. And the major problem was begar also. You learned, I hope you know the meaning of begar, but here is written work without payment. When you work without payment in any company or any institution or in a landlord crops, it means it's a begar. And they revolted. For their revolt, they made a sabha or a association named as Awadh Kisan Sabha. To revolt, Awadh Kisan Sabha was formed by the peasants, and these Sabha of peasants attacked merchants and talukdars as a revolt. I hope you learned the first point. How did peasant revolt against the British? And their leader was Baba Ramchandra. Problem, you learned that, and after that they made an association, and how did they react, you also learned. And nextly, there was also participation of tribal people in non-cooperation, but you will learn that each of the community have their own purposes to participate in the non-cooperation movement. You learned that peasants have their problems. They did not fight for their Swaraj. Their first motive was not Swaraj, not independence. They were fighting for stopping begar and for high rent and for taxes and revenue system also. And now the tribal people, why did tribal people involved in non-cooperation movement? The first one, we will discuss about the problem. You learnt in ninth class also, the colonial government banned shifting cultivation and also made forest laws. They were not allowed. It means the the tribal peasants and tribal people were not allowed to enter the forest to graze animals, and they were also forced to do begar, and that's why they revolted against the British as participating in non-cooperation movement. Their leader was Alluri Sitaram Raju, and he was the follower of Gandhiji. It means he was devoted to Gandhiji and follow the rules also. But one rule was not followed by him. His thinking was that India will get independence from the British with the help of non-violence. So that's why Alluri Sitaram Raju and the tribal people attacked police stations and killed British officials. And finally, in 1924, Alluri Sitaram Raju was captured and executed. I hope you learned the second point of also of rebellion in countryside. And the third major point of today is Saraj Implantation. It means how did plantation workers participate in non-cooperation movement? In plantations of Assam, workers revolted. Now you will also learn that what was the major issue of workers of plantation? Was it Swaraj or another issue? According to them, Swaraj means to move freely from plantation. It means, you know that in second point, Swaraj means to move freely from plantation. It was Swaraj for them. Under the Inland Emigration Act 1859, it will be objective type question in exam. When was Inland Immigration Act passed by British? You will write 1859, and it will be the major question in exam. What do you mean by Inland Immigration Act? You will write that according to this act, plantation workers were not allowed to go or to leave the place without permission of plantation owners. So they were not allowed to leave the gardens without permission. So that's why they participated in non-cooperation movement to get that such type of freedom. So they revolted against British to achieve freedom, and they left the gardens as a revolt. But due to strike in railway, there was no communication system or transportation system for them to go their home. So that's why in between the way they were caught by police and brutally beaten up. And that's why they controlled, or in this way they controlled the plantation workers. I hope you learned the final point of today also. I hope you enjoyed the session of today. If you are new on my YouTube channel, and if you are old or means subscribers also, please share, like and share this video and the previous videos also, so that your near and dear by can learn things for lesson number 2 and the previous topics also. Thank you and have a nice day. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.